Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm sitting down with Michelle Fermin, a growth driven real estate leader, a national speaker whose story began with one simple goal, which was to help her mother buy her first home. She leads the Fermin Group, an elite team that sold over 5,000 homes and $1.5 billion in sales. That's just amazing. Today, we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, resilience, especially after the 2008 housing crash, leadership, and the real life behind what success really means. Michelle, I'm so happy that you're here with me today. You
Thank
entered the real estate world, right, to help your mom buy her first home.
That's right.
Take me back to that moment.
Yeah, so I was 21. I really had I guess I was looking for, what my next steps were. I had some serious interest in medicine. My lifelong dream was to be a doctor. But my mom had started expressing interest in buying a home. And as she started exploring that, we started realizing all of the challenges that came along with that, especially in that time. There was very, very limited resources, number one. It was very limited folks that actually spoke the language. And she spoke broken Spanish. I'm sorry, broken English. We had limited resources. We didn't really know where to go. And at that time, I believe there was two other agents that were working in the Latino community. And as you can imagine, they were pretty inundated with business. And I remember walking into our local real estate office and we had gotten approved. And at that time, we were approved for less than what market value was. So we were poo-pooed away. It was like, well, we already have all these people. You figure it out and come back to us later on. And I honestly felt crushed for her, right? Because she's this immigrant woman who had come in, who had dreams just like everyone else of home ownership. And all of a sudden that was just crushed. So I said, don't worry, I'll go get my license as if I could just like go down to the local bodega and get it, right? But I got my license and I came back and the purpose of it was help her get in and out and then go on with whatever, my next steps were. And after she bought her house, I remember her best friend came and said, well, if you helped her, can you help me? And then the other friend and the neighbor. And I was bombarded because people were shocked, right? At that time, homeownership for Latinos, especially in our area, was really a huge privilege, which it still is today. But at that time, it was almost like a goal that was unobtainable. So when we were able to do it, it just opened up a huge opportunity for them. And it really started my journey and my lifelong passion.
Did you ever, at any point prior to helping your mom buy her home, did you ever see yourself as an entrepreneur, as sort of setting up your business? Okay.
I was really lucky that my parents always just instilled in me, you're going to be a business owner. You're going to be, you're going to lead us in a different way. My parents were really vocal about that. There's such huge goals for you. We see you opening up doors that we didn't have. And I tried to do the same thing for my kids, right? So that's such an important part of it. When you grow up hearing you're meant for great things, and those were the words that they would say, you are meant for great things. It just instills in something in you that you're like, I got to keep going. I got to do something better.
Amazing. So that identity, you always started off with that identity, knowing that you were gonna sort of blaze your own trails essentially in whatever field that you were destined to follow. And real estate happened to be that one door that kind of opened up your pathway in many significant ways. And I think it was not only life altering for you, but I think transformative in many ways. Real estate is one of those fields, right, that can be tricky. And 2008 was one that surprised many of us. And at that time, I was a homeowner as well, and just biting our fingernails trying to figure out what was going to happen, how we were going to overcome, what would the aftermath of that be like. What was that like for you?
Oh, that was a real slap in the face. Now, keep in mind, up until 2007, I was in my late 20s and I was a self-made millionaire. I had a bunch of properties. We had opened up a brokerage, which was Century 21, McLennan, Ortega, and Fermin. So props to Janet McLennan, who really gave me that opportunity amongst many other women. But she saw something in me that really helped. And when we opened that up, it was phenomenal. It was like a dream come true. All of a sudden, this projection of wealth and success and leadership just went whoop, just crushed.
Mm.
So, like yourself, I own my own home, I own other properties. And I remember thinking when it started, I'm just going to hang on. I'm going to hang on. This is temporary. The market will correct. And I had to start selling properties and going through assets. And before you know it, I had to short sell my house. I was on the verge of bankruptcy. I was broke. And it became a moment of self realization of, okay, this happened. I could either become a victim and say, well, I tried my best and give into it, or do what a lot of other people did at that time. 80 some percent of the agents that were there left real estate, or real estate became a part-time job for them. That wasn't an option for me. I had 3 small kids, and I said, well, my option is either I reinvent myself and get back into this, or I'm going to go on welfare. I'm not saying anything bad about that, but I'm literally going to be forced to go on welfare, forced to do things that I don't want to do, and give up my dreams. And it wasn't an option. It was I either feed my kids and stick with this, and that's what I did. Put my big girl pants on, and I said, "How do I reinvent myself, and how do I come back in a way that's different?" And I think that that's a big, component of especially starting over or even getting into a business. How do I make myself stand out and provide real value that was lacking?
I would say that 90% of success is living and navigating through failure.
That's right.
Everyone sees the shiny objects and sees your success, but doesn't really understand that your success where you are today, you had to go through many sort of roadblocks and experience
Failures.
failure, a lot of failure, but learning from that. And you said something really key and important, which is I had to reinvent myself,
That's right.
right? Big girl pants and figure this out for myself in a place where many people would say, I'm just going to quit. This is hard. This is too hard. I have 3 young children. So, you being a mother, head of household, raising humans, it's easy to give up. So, what kept you going? I mean, I understand your children as a motivator, but I think there had to be that fire within you.
Well, you said it. You have 2 options. One, right, you fail, and I tried my best, and it is what it is, and become complacent to whatever it is that at that moment, drove me to, or I say, this is not an option for me. This is not what my path is. And I kept repeating that to myself. How do I change? How do I change? And I started looking for opportunities. I started looking, what's the next mega trend? And that's a term that most business owners should really learn and understand. What's the next mega trend? Where is the market leaning to? And as I did that, I just started focusing on, okay, we're now in this market where we're adjusting. We're now looking at short sales. We're now looking at foreclosures. I'm going to become the professional in that. I'm going to be able to help people transition out of this bad situation into, a better situation. And that's what I did. I looked at a mega trend, became the expert in that area, and then I just really started focusing on that. And I started from the beginning. But, luckily, I had enough faith in myself and faith in God that I kept going. And like I said, failure was not an option. It was, if you don't get up every single day and do this, what is the alternative? And that alternative was not enough for me. So that's one of the big things that I think that people need to really focus on. What is the alternative? And if that alternative is not who you are meant to be or what your path is, then you must keep going.
That's great. So, not remaining complacent, embracing failure. What other mindset shifts would you say or strategies helped you rebuild? Because essentially you had to rebuild from the bottom up and you've become even more successful.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I remember when I said, "All right, I need to shift." Prior to that point, I had the mentality of, "Oh, I know what I'm doing. I've made it so far. I've been successful so far." And I think that this is one of the biggest challenges that a lot of leaders have. They stop learning. They stop wanting to look for advice and coaching. And that was the first year that I said, I need help and I need someone that's done it before that I can basically copy and duplicate what they're doing. And that was the first time that I hired a coach. I didn't have the money to pay for it, but I said, "I'm gonna figure it out." And I hired my first coach, and she gave me a real kick in the butt, which I loved, and I made myself humble. And one of the biggest words that I say, is important for not only myself, but for other people is that I allowed myself to be coachable, and that makes all the difference in the world, right? When you find someone that's doing it the right way and you allow yourself to be coachable and allow yourself to to hear the criticism and just say, okay, this is what I need to do and follow the path and put that whole ego thing aside, it makes a big difference. And I've been a coaching student ever since. Here I am. That was in 2008, 2025. I still have at least one coach at a time. Right now, I have three coaches, and it just depends on what it is that my business needs at that time.
That's great. You mentioned coaching. I rave about coaching. I've had executive coaching. I've taken every opportunity to get feedback. And I think for many of us, especially women, it's hard getting that feedback. And so you have to be in a place to be vulnerable enough, I would say, to receive that feedback. As you said, being coachable enough. You also mentioned early on in our conversation someone who saw something in you and gave you an opportunity. So, what's the importance of mentorship? And I see that you also mentor people, young people in this field.
Yes. Before we go into the mentorship, I just want to touch a little bit more on the coaching. My first
Absolutely.
year, I had that, I'm just gonna do it, like, I'm just gonna do it just to do it, and I wasn't fully invested, and that is such a big mistake. I had to really sit down with myself and say, "Okay, if I'm gonna sit here and I'm going to really focus on what I'm doing and really be successful, I have to be all in." That means my mind needs to be all in, my heart needs to be all in, my family needs to be all in, and that's one of the biggest keys to success. You have to be humble. You have to be humble and just sit there and do the work and put your ego aside and everything else aside and your success aside. You're here for a job. And what are you taking away from these sessions that you're there and actually putting in the work? And that's the part two of it, right? How many times have we gone to these incredible seminars or we listened to a webinar or a podcast and you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yes.
then you don't do anything, right? It's so important to actually take notes. After you take notes, go back and circle one or two things. What is it that really resonated with me, and how can I implement this into my life now? Once you've implemented those things into your life and they become a life practice, then start looking on adding on to that. So that was one of the things that I wanted to touch on because I was one of those people that would go to these incredible seminars for years, had notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of things, but didn't do anything, right? Would you say that you're guilty of that? How many
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So, really taking the time to paying attention to what you're doing and investing your whole heart into this. If you're investing your time, invest your whole heart into this so that it can be successful. So I wanted to add that. Mentorship, oh my gosh. I mean, besides the fact that it completely changed my life in a way when I was in the receiving part of it, but being on the giving side is even more fulfilling because you see how you impact other people's lives. You could really see how your experience and the good and the bad can be so fruitful for someone else. And I'm a true believer, you give and you get back 10 times, you know?
Absolutely.
So for me, that shift has been such an incredible gift and has really taken a big part of my journey moving forward.
That's great. You're just such an interesting watching your journey and seeing your success. You share a lot on Facebook,
I
and I
do.
think
Too much maybe.
you do. And I think it's important. Again, people have big shiny syndrome where they see someone's success and they don't really understand the sweat equity, the sacrifice that it took to get there. So all they see is your success. I appreciate that you have those honest moments where you tell people, this is where I came from. This is how I started. This is what I've experienced in my life. And this is how I've gotten here. And I think you model and exemplify work ethic as well, right? You're investing in yourself, you're investing in your business, you're investing in your community, you invest in your children. And I think all of that is a wonderful example to young women, to women who feel stuck in their lives, right? Because I think even as we age and we get older, we feel like, is there an end point right now? Do I have to stop living and dreaming? And I think you embrace the journey of also a woman who is mature and evolving, and you're still setting goals for yourself. So I appreciate that you share that much. And it's inspiring to me as well. I think
Thank you.
I'm also a very goal driven person. learning and taking down notes and trying to improve myself. So I like talking and having these conversations with like minded individuals. Thinking about failure, because I think a lot of people are afraid of failing and not succeeding. How do you compare that failure early on in your career when you were younger compared to where you are now? Because you lead a very large team.
I do, and that's one component of my business, right? Because I do 3 other businesses, but that is my baby. Totally I love that because it's the mentorship component of it, right? I love it because I see the results in my face, and it's something that's I can touch and feel and hug the people in my team. How do I compare the failures? I don't see it as failures anymore. I really don't. I remember, being in my 20s and 30s and just suffering from crazy anxiety of what's going to happen, if this happens again and I lose it all and what am I going to do and how am I going to reinvent myself? And this touches a lot with what you had said about sharing. A lot of us, especially as women, we're mothers, we're wives, we're caregivers, we have to deal with the social calendars, travel advisors, we have to pick up our kids, we're the cooks, we're the housekeepers. We have all of these roles and we're expected to just, look beautiful and walk around and yes, everything is perfect. Well, it isn't. A lot of us suffer from anxiety, depression, just real struggles, addictions, mental health issues. And these are things that we need to talk about and really share with one another and look for support. So when I feel that I am going through something, I don't call it a failure, I call it a struggle or a learning point. I really, really focus on talking through it with my friends and family. And if I need to find a therapist or a coach to help me, then that's what it is. So I no longer look at it as a failure. I look at it as what could I have done differently and what do I do now so that I don't put myself in that position again?
That's great. Mindset shift, right? So it's a struggle, a growth edge instead of a failure, right? It's a learning moment for all of us. And leading a large team and people that you mentor, you're also, in many ways, are responsible, right? So, what does accountability look like for you in your world and also for the people that you lead?
Well, I am one that leads by example for sure. I am in the trenches. Anything, that we talk about of, hey, this is what our goal is. And I'm very systematic, I'm very analytical. This is what our goal is for Q1, 2, 3, and 4. We talk about it as a group because I don't lead them. They're my partners in this business. We all have a different role. We talk about it together. We collectively decide, who's going to hold what, down and how are we gonna get there, and we're very systematic about making sure that we're following the path. Now, when I say that, I'm a 4DX believer. If you've never looked into it, please read about, 4DX, and I'm all about score keeping and really paying attention to numbers because that makes such a big difference, Vivian. So when I say that every single day, end of my day for my team, they see all of our numbers. I'm talking about you need to make conversations, you need to have calls, you need to make appointments. I'm showing them what I've done throughout the day. So that's me leading by example. Hey, Vivian, for you to be able to get to X, this is the path to it. And I'm going to do the same with you. And I'm holding myself accountable, same exact thing. So I think that that's one big thing, which is full transparency, right? Full transparency of full transparency of where I'm at. The other part of that leadership, again, is the goal setting and making sure that we're keeping those metrics so that we are on the right path. And if we need to make adjustments along the way to correct, then we could do that earlier on in the stage as opposed to trying to correct after disasters have happened.
So, what would separate a young agent, all right, or agent who's trying to grow from agents who just stay stuck and don't grow?
Coaching, 100%. And it's so funny because in my team, I have phenomenal agents that have been in the business, a couple of decades, and then I have agents that are brand new. And you see the new agents just killing it. And it's because they know nothing different but the coaching systems. This is how we do it. This is what we do. And these are the systems, as opposed to someone who's gotten stuck in their ways and has the mentality of, well, it's worked for 10, 20 years. Why wouldn't it continue to work now? Right. you need to continue to evolve. So the ones that get stuck are the ones that get stuck in their head and choose not to evolve, not to keep going, with what the mega trends are and understanding those mega trends and making themselves the experts there.
Great, great advice for anyone watching this podcast. I want to shift a little bit because I think big part of what makes you you is, as I mentioned earlier, is you're sharing about your life and your struggles. And you've also been a person who has experienced deep loss and losing your mom and your brother and grieving those losses. And for many people, that type of grief can impact how they function and show up in the
Mhm.
world. How did your grief and your loss change you and how you lead? And how do you just keep showing up for yourself?
Well, that is a very sensitive topic. I'll try not to cry, but
No, no.
no, no. What a lot of people don't realize it wasn't. I'm not gonna say just my mother and my brother because those are huge, but it was my mother, my grandmother, my aunt, my cousin, my brother, a member of our team, my dog, like everyone just, and I don't call them saying passed away, they transitioned, right? In an 18-month period. And it was really hard situations, but I am a big believer in God. I am a true believer that we keep going. And I feel that I have a very I'm very sensitive to a lot of, people that have transitioned. And I learned how to communicate not only with the ones that I love in my heart and in my mind, but I started seeing things differently. And instead of saying, oh my gosh, why did this happen? It was, how do I learn from this? How do I grow? And how do I take their life lessons with me so that I can continue to evolve? And that's a really hard part because we can get so stuck and grief, and that was probably when my mom passed, that was the first real tough one, and it was hard. I had to find a therapist, and I remember this therapist came to my house, and she said, "Well, how are you?" And I just, like, broke down, and I just cried it out, and then I was like, "Okay, we all need to have this. We need to be able to cry it out. We need to be able to really explain what's happening inside, because if you don't, it stays stuck in there." So for me, being vocal, being able to find friends and family and even social media that I can say, this is what I'm going through, but this is how I'm dealing with it. Please, if you've gone through something like this, I'd love to hear, how things have worked out for you and some tips and examples of things that I can do. And that made a big difference. It made a huge, huge difference. I can also tell you that things like breath work, meditation, and just journaling, and I know we hear it all the time, but such a different part of your life that opens up, and you just feel like you can breathe after. So those things definitely helped me.
Doing that deep reflective work and taking responsibility for your inner life, your inner world, I think is something that we often don't do. We're so busy, right? Doing, especially as high achieving women, we get caught up in our busyness. And that's a way of avoiding also the discomfort of life, right? Whether it's grief, loss, breakups, stress related to work, stress related to parenting and raising young humans. And you've done a beautiful job raising three
I
beautiful
am. I'm
children.
so blessed to have them. I do wanna mention one other thing. When my mom passed away, something inside me said, "You need to take a break." I had been working nonstop since I was 14. I started my first business at 15. Never, ever, ever did I ever just take some time off. And my body, my soul was saying, "You need to stop." And that's one thing that's really key. When you feel that I need a break, take the break. I actually, was blessed enough to take 4 months off. I said, "Where's the farthest I can go?" And I went to China and Japan. I mean, I wanted complete out, but I took the time that I needed, that my soul and my heart needed to be able to grieve. And that was such a big component of me being able to get through it. So, and I see that in a lot of people that, someone passes away or like you said, a breakup, a divorce, and they don't take the time to grieve it and fully heal. Well, actually, maybe we never fully heal, right? But give us the time to be able to cope. So take that time because it makes such a difference in your life, and it truly saved mine.
Being a mother, what advice or what did you want or hope for your children? And what do you want them to learn from the way you've led your life and you've built your life?
Wow, that's actually a tricky question. It's so funny because up to a few years ago, you would have asked me, how did you do as a mother? I was like, I was a great mother. I provided everything. My kids are world travelers, went to great schools, had everything they wanted, beautiful homes. And I remember sitting down, this was probably 3 years ago. I sat down to dinner with my two girls, and one of the girls, one of my youngest daughter, Jocelyn, asked Jess, what was it like and from your perspective, having mom as your mom? And the conversation went from me thinking, oh, I'm such a good mom to, it was really difficult having you as a mom. And you weren't present. You were always working. You were this and that. So the perspective that I had, completely different than what my girls had experienced. And even my son has experienced, right? So when I say, what is it that I want my children to remember me by and learn from me is that, and this is something that's true for everyone, right? We don't know how to be parents. We learn as we go. We learn as we go. We do the best that we can. And then when we have more of a breathing moment like I do now that I'm 50, that I can go back and say, wow, I could have been more present then. I'm not gonna be depressed or sad about it now. I'm gonna be present now. I'm gonna focus on now. I'm gonna focus on the future. So what I want my kids to know is I did my best, and I'm always trying to do my best, and I'm always trying to get better, and I'm always looking forward to the future of what else can I do. So that's probably one of the biggest things that I want. I want my legacy to know that they know that I was always trying to provide them with the best.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that was really honest. We focus so much on giving our children every single opportunity. I'm guilty of that as well, right? Giving her the best education, the best lifestyle and access, and being reflective. That also comes at the cost of my presence sometimes.
That's right.
And what do our children really need from us? And if from our perspective, we're doing great, right? Like kudos to us because we are doing our best. And from their perspective as children, what they need is, our presence. And that's hard, especially if you're a single mother, right? Trying to raise your children and offer them every opportunity that in many ways we didn't have, right? Because our parents made their own sacrifices to get us to where we are. So thank that was really beautiful. And I really appreciate you sharing that. For
Yes,
someone who's and being you mentioned being in your 50s, I'm in my 50s too, right? This is the next chapter in our journey.
that's right.
For women especially, I often see this erasure. As you get older, it's as if we don't exist. And you're a prime example that we're still here. We're still successful. We're still beautiful. We're setting goals. We're achieving goals. Like we're setting the bar high for ourselves. And for a woman out there who's listening and in that season of her life, or maybe she's a younger mother and she's not sure what to do, what advice would you give her?
Well, on what component? On how to be more, how to feel more secure. I mean, there's so many components of that question.
Any part.
You know, it's funny, you mentioned you're 50. I remember being in my 20s and always thinking that I didn't look good enough. I was self-conscious. I didn't wanna wear the bikini because I thought that I was not perfect, and always thinking that I wasn't enough, right? I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I don't have the nice enough body, I'm not smart enough, I shouldn't be here. We all have that self-sabotage. And as I got older, right? As I got older, especially when I got into my 40s, it just shifted. It's just all of a sudden was, I am good enough. I do deserve to be here because I started saying different things to myself. So when I would go into these rooms, it was like, I own this. Like, I 100% deserve to be here. I did the work. There's no one that's going to show up like I am. No one is like me, and I'm unique and I'm beautiful in my own ways. And it just started feeling real. And then it did become real. And that whole issue about self-doubt, it just got pushed away. So what I would start saying to anybody at any age is start talking to you differently. Start talking to yourself differently. whenever I have a big speech or a big award or something that's coming up, I would literally write all over my house in mirrors, "You're great. You're gonna kill this. You deserve this." And I do that because I wanna be able to visually see it as I'm going through. And I'm brushing my teeth in the morning, and I'm seeing all these great things that I wrote to myself, and I just feel good, right? So when you talk to yourself in that great way, in that sweet, loving way, it becomes who you are.
I can see that. I can see you've done the work, which leads me to my next question. You're such a impactful speaker. How'd you get into national speaking? Where did you start, and kind of what lit the fire behind that?
So it's so funny. One of my old coaches, okay, remember how I told you that I left to Asia right after my mom died? And it was crazy because I had built this incredible system. I had really put everything together for the business. And we were only 9 agents at that time. And all of a sudden, my mom passed away. And I said to the team, I need to fix myself and be here fully. I need to fix my heart for me to be able to lead you guys in the right way. And I took 4 months off, and the crazy part was that was the first year we became number 1 in the world. We were only number 9 agents, and it really was based off the systems and the hard work and the prep that we had done. So when I came back, my coach at the time said, "Hey, I'd love for you to, be on this stage. It's for 121." There was thousands and thousands of people there. It's in Vegas. I think that year it was at Caesars, and he said, "I'd love for you to be on here, and it's just you. This is all about you." I remember saying, "Oh my god, this is wonderful." That morning, I got up, I threw up. I said, "I can't do this. I can't do this." I remember literally right before I went out, I got sick again. Th Somebody said to me, like, right before I went in, the speaker before me, I was like, "Oh my gosh, you know, I don't know what I'm gonna do." And he said, "Michelle, what's the worst that's gonna happen? You do something wrong, you say something wrong, no one's gonna know. Only you. You're the only critic in your head. If you screw up, just keep going. No one is gonna know." I said, "You know what? You're right." And I tell you, within 30 seconds, that fear was gone. And I went out there and I killed it. Like, I literally killed it. And there's so many mistakes, so many screw ups, and my heart was in my throat. But it just all diminished when I said, What's the worst that can happen? I say something wrong, there's a laugh." It goes, "I'm human." And that's the part that people want to see. They want to see the human part of you. I remember being on that stage. I'm a very emotional person, but I remember being on that stage talking about my mom, and I'm like, "Oh my God, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry," in front of all these people. But when I looked back at it, I was like, wow, that was the human component of it, right? And that's what people want to relate to.
Your authenticity definitely comes across when you speak. When I see you show up in different places, I really appreciate your authenticity and just your candor
Thank
for
you.
life. I hope that you continue inspiring others. You have definitely been a person that I've looked at, even though you may not know this, right? This is how you influence people without even knowing. Just your confidence, how you show up in the world,
Thank you.
your vulnerability. Again, right? Being a human means that you're going to make mistakes. And for me, that was sort of what led me to having this podcast. I stumble over my words, I say a lot, but if I don't get going, it's a dream that I'll never fulfill. And so, again, watching others pave their own paths, being human, showing up, being consistent, I think that's something I appreciate about you. You're always consistent, not being complacent, not putting ourselves or making ourselves the victim of our circumstances, and
Right.
really creating a life that we want. I think all of that has been just a beautiful journey that I get to watch and experience. And
Thank
I'm
you.
just so thankful and grateful for your presence with me today and sharing your wisdom with me and my viewers and subscribers, which are growing by the day, right? I started with like one person and now I have close to 80, which is, it's really exciting in its own ways. Before,
And I'm sorry to
yeah,
interrupt you, but I
no,
want to share
no, go
something.
ahead.
I recently shared that I'm on this weight loss journey. And I remember my daughter saying, "Oh my gosh, why would you tell anybody about that?" It's like, people want to hear about this, and
Yes.
I want support. I want to hear what people have gone through, and what can I do? I've never had to go through this before, but I want to do it because I want to feel better and I want to be more present for my grandson and be healthier for my grandson. And I gotta tell you that this time that I posted, "Hey, I'm on this journey. This is what's going on." I've probably had hundreds of people DM me, "I'm so glad you said that. This is what my challenge is. This is how I work through it." So for me, that's a huge win. I had surgery a few years ago where I almost died. I had a neck aneurysm, and I shared my whole journey. And when I tell you, it was incredible the number of people that were reaching out saying, "Thank you for this. Thank you for being vulnerable." I literally came out as soon as I came out of a 7-hour surgery, I'm sitting there like, "I'm okay. This is the reason why you need to advocate for yourself." But this is where I see social media such a wonderful platform, because someone like me can share, someone like you, anyone can share what their challenges are, and you don't even realize how many people you're affecting or helping, right? Helping them get past a challenge. So that's why I choose to be authentic. That's why I choose to share not only the good, but the bad and the real that we all have to go through.
Yeah. And I think people are generally afraid of what the world may say, what the critics may say, and judgment. And I think ultimately that's what held me back. What will people say? Will they criticize me? And having that self doubt, or, do I look a certain way? Am I not pretty enough or thin enough? And all those things that go through your mind. And ultimately, I'm living my life in my body, and this is my journey. And this is one of my dreams. And I'm glad that I get to fulfill it. But I think it's watching women like you that really helps. It's a springboard for many of us who feel stuck. What is it that she's doing that can help bolster what I'm doing? And right, we're in different areas of life, but I think just seeing another woman being successful, being comfortable in her own skin, being confident, another Latina, just I think that does the world of good. You're making the world better. You're making it more beautiful with your
Thank
presence. And
you.
I'm just really grateful that you've given me the time today to talk to me about your journey. So before we wrap up this call, or this episode, I would say anyone who's out there, any young person who wants, maybe is interested in mentorship or growing or real estate, what's one way they can reach you or connect with you?
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you my contact. They can call me, they can email me, they can DM me through Instagram. I'm very, very active. So probably a call would be the best.
So if anyone's interested in working with Michelle or learning about the real estate business or just more information about coaching and growing, I'll list her details down below. What's one final parting piece of advice that you hope to share out with the world today?
Oh my gosh, I think we covered so many things, but well, I shouldn't say I think, I know that being authentic, being true to yourself, really understanding what your life journey is and following through, being humble, coachable. It just goes on and on, right? That big, big part of my life is coachable. Really listening to what people have to say, learning from opportunities, understanding that failures is just a way to look at things and say, what could I have done differently? How do I bounce back and bounce back better? So I look forward to failures. I do. It's a part of winning, right? So don't be afraid to fail, and don't be afraid to be your true self.
Thank you, Michelle, for this.
You're welcome.
So if you enjoyed today's chat, would like to contact Michelle, you can see her information and the details down below. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Bye.
Thank you.